The Indian Child Bride and the Old Arab Husband. A novel by Dr. A. Ahmed. This story has been written in English and translated into Arabic by the author Dr. Ahmed. This book continues narrating the story of the Arab sugar daddy and the beautiful Indian girl. This story resonates with truthfulness, confrontation, challenge, genuine love, strong resilience, and steadfast courage. I invite you to accompany me as I continue narrating the tragic life story of the extremely beautiful Indian mother, Rehana Khan, and her lovely little daughter, Ifat Khan. Let us resume our narration of the lifelong journey of those two Indian women. Before we dive into the tapestry of the story, I would like to remind the reader this novel is narrated in 6 books. Book 1, The Arab Sugar Daddy and the Beautiful Indian Girl. Book 2, The Indian Child Bride and the Old Arab Husband. Book 3, The Indian Miss World and the Rage of Muslims of the World. Book 4, Christina and the Complete Jew. Book 5, The Tears of God, Jews, Blacks, and Muslim Women. And Book 6, The Hidden Life of the Prophet Muhammad. This book narrates the Islamic halal marriage between the 70-year-old Arab husband, Sheikh Ahmed, and the 7-year-old Indian child bride, Ifat Khan. Book 2. The Arab sugar daddy turns into Satan the granddaddy. Copyrights. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer, who may quote brief passages for a review to be printed in a public newspaper, general magazine, school journal, or university article. All characters in this novel are fictional and any resemblance to real people, living or dead, is merely coincidental. Chapter 1. Practicing Thaying on Children. There is an evil practice among the Arabs called Mufakazat al-Sagar, loosely translated as the practice of thaying on small children. There is no proper English translation for this practice, simply because it is not a Western norm. The thigh is the part in humans between the hip and the knee. The nearest evil act to the practicing thaying on children in English would probably be child molesting. However, practicing thaying on children is infinitely eviler than child molesting. It is done by an adult man to a child, with the sanction of religion. Now let us see how it is practiced on a child, and who began this evil practice. According to an official fatwa issued in Saudi Arabia, the Prophet Muhammad began to practice thaying on the naked body of his child bride, Aisha, when she was 6 years old and continued, until she reached 9 years of age, fatwa number 31409. There is an authentic hadith of the Prophet Muhammad which mentioned that he started performing literal sex with Aisha only when she reached the age of 9, Sahih al-Bukhari, Book 62, hadith number 89. Therefore, Muslim scholars collectively agreed, by virtue of divine example, that a child becomes an adult, available for sexual intercourse as soon as she reaches the age of 9. Likewise, the Sharia allows any Muslim man to marry a 6-year-old child. According to the fatwa, the Prophet Muhammad could not have sex with his fiancée, Aisha, when she was 6 due to her small size and age. However, the fatwa said that at age 6, he would put his penis between her thighs and massage it gently because he did not want to harm her. Imagine a man of 51 years of age removing the clothes of a 6-year-old girl and slipping his erect penis between her thighs, rubbing it on her until he ejaculated, and his semen ran down all over her thighs. To this day, this is considered a benevolent act on the part of the adult male not wanting to harm her. What more harm could be inflicted upon an underage girl mentally and emotionally if not a grown man showing her his erect penis and stripping her of her clothes and rubbing his phallus between her legs? Of course, the twisted mind that does such evil to an underage child would not hesitate to ejaculate on her body. And if this sexually perverted evil frame of mind committed such an act upon a child, the pedophile would not stop on ejaculating on her thighs only. His evil desire might go further and rape the child before she is a mature adult. This is exactly what Muhammad did to Aisha, when she was yet a child of 9 years. Before she reached puberty, he began to have sex with her. Even Aisha exposed her abuser and rapist in many hadiths. She mentioned that Muhammad married her when she was a mere child, and she used to play with her dolls while she was in his house. Aisha narrated that, "I used to play with the dolls in the presence of the Prophet, and my girlfriends also used to play with me. When Allah's apostle used to enter to us, they used to hide, but the Prophet would call them to join and play with me." Sahih al-Bukhari, Volume 8, Book 73, Hadith number 151. This hadith had been explained by the renowned Muslim explainer Fateh al-Bari. The playing with dolls and similar images is forbidden, but it was allowed for Aisha at that time, as she was a little girl, not yet reached the age of puberty. Fateh al-Bari, Volume 13, page 143. Having proven that scandalous and evil marriage, let us now see what the modern fatwa said about the Prophet of Islam and his underage child bride, Aisha. Praise be to Allah and peace be upon the one after whom there is no further prophet. After the Permanent Committee for the Scientific Research and Fatwas, Religious Divinely Guided Decrees, reviewed the question presented to the Grand Mufti Abu Abdullah Muhammad al-Shamri, the question was forwarded to the committee by the Grand Scholar of the Committee with reference number 1809 issued on 3/8/1421, Islamic calendar. The inquirer asked the following. It has become widespread these days, and especially during weddings, the habit of mufakazat al-sagar of small children. This Arabic phrase literally means placing the penis between the thighs of a child. In other words, it can be translated as placing the male phallus between the thighs of a child to get sexual pleasure. What is the opinion of scholars, knowing full well that the Prophet, may the prayers and peace of Allah be upon him, also practiced the thighing of Aisha, the mother of believers, may Allah be pleased with her? After the committee studied the issue, they gave the following reply. It has not been the practice of the Muslims throughout the centuries to resort to this unlawful practice that has come to our countries from pornographic movies al-Kufar, the Western infidels, and the other enemies of Islam sent to us. As for the Prophet, peace and prayers of Allah be upon him, thighing his fiancée Aisha. She was 6 years of age, and he could not have intercourse with her due to her small age. That is why the Prophet, peace and prayers of Allah be upon him, placed his penis between her thighs and massaged it lightly, as the Apostle of Allah had control of his penis, not like other believers. 2 quick observations about this immoral and evil fatwa. Firstly, the fatwa said the Prophet Muhammad had practiced child thighing on his fiancée Aisha, and not his wife Aisha. That means he had sexually abused and molested Aisha before he married her. Secondly, the fatwa said Muslims learn to practice thighing of children from the pornographic movies the Western infidels create and send to the Muslim world. But then the fatwa contradicted itself when it said the Prophet Muhammad was the one who practiced thighing his fiancée, Aisha, because she was 6 years of age, and he could not have intercourse with her due to her small age. That is why the Prophet, peace and prayers of Allah be upon him, placed his penis between her thighs and massaged it lightly. That means Muslim men learn to practice the thighing of children from the example of the child abuser, the alleged prophet of God Muhammad, and not from the Western infidels and their pornographic movies. Muhammad and his child bride lived in the 7th century, and videos and pornographic movies are the inventions of the modern time in the 20th century. So, the Prophet Muhammad was the inventor, teacher, and true culprit of this evil crime against children, and not the creation of the so-called Western infidels. Practicing thighing of children is practiced in many Arab and Muslim countries, notably in Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Iraq, Iran, and the other Gulf countries. These countries are notoriously known for this evil practice. According to the Bahraini women's rights activist, Ghada Jamshir, there are many more such immoral practices against children, like al-tamatu bil al-mufakaza, pleasure from sexual contact with her thighs, al-tamatu bil al-muka, pleasure from sexual contact with her breasts, al-tamatu bil al-sajra, pleasure from sexual contact with a baby girl, al-tamatu bil al-radia, pleasure from sexual contact with a suckling. by Bahraini women's rights activist, Ghada Jamshir. The Islamic Sharia authorizes a grown-up man to marry even a 9-year-old child. It is quite common to see a man of 70 or 80 years of age marrying a child of 8 or 10 years. Recently, an 80-year-old Saudi man married a 10-year-old girl. On the wedding night, the child's private parts hemorrhaged so badly that they had to take her to the hospital. Another recent case was of a Yemeni man who raped his child bride on his first wedding night until she died. These are just a handful of the thousands of rapes of children that take place each year legalized by Islamic child marriage following the evil example of the Prophet Muhammad with his 9-year-old child bride. Chapter 2. The Barbie Dolls. The poisonous snake Saudi woman, Mrs. Ahmed, has allowed the daughter of the detained Indian maidservant Ifat to stay in her mansion for 1 week, before eventually, she convinced her husband to take her away. The evil Kapra woman Mastora hates Ifat with a passion and despises her mother Rehana with bitterness. Whenever she sees her, she sees the face of her mother. Ifat is not only an exact copy of her mother, but she looks as if her mother had cloned her, without a father. She has the same beautiful eyes, the same golden color, the same hair, and the same mole on the middle of her left cheek. If Ifat stood among 1,000 underage Indian girls, no one would confuse her with any other woman, except her mother. The only differences between her mother and her are their age and the size of their bodies. Her mother is a bit heavier and has a larger backside. Ifat might develop a more voluptuous body over time, much like her mother's once she started to develop into a young woman. The situation of her resemblance to her mother created a profoundly fundamental problem for her where she is staying. The two evil teenage sons Khalid and Tariq are hovering over her as eagles hovering over the chick of a hen or the carcass of a dead animal. While their wicked mother is forcing the small daughter of the Indian maidservant to do work that her mother used to do for her. Even so, the snake woman said to her husband that her good and noble sons might rape the small girl if he does not take her away before it is too late. She also said she is keeping the underage Indian girl at night sleeping on the floor of her bedroom, so that her teenage sons might not get a chance to rape her if she is left alone in her small room. Her husband understood her concern and agreed to take away the small girl. After the unexpected arrest of her mother Rehana, Sheikh Ahmed looked at the daughter Ifat as a heavy burden. At first, he did not know what to do with her for a certain time. She has no address of her own in India. The old Saudi man knew that Ifat used to live with her mother in a hut in a slum without an address. He knows that the address on her passport is the address of the Sudanese boy Babakar, who is awaiting trial for drug smuggling in Bombay. She has no guardian whom he knows of at this point. Her mother informed him that her husband had died a couple of years ago. The Saudi Sheikh Ahmed does not know any of her Indian relatives in Bombay. Even if he decided to send her back to India, where should he send her and to whom? If he wanted to keep her, how long should he keep her in his house? Which one of his wives would agree to raise a female child that is not her own? Besides, the scandal of her mother would be a stigma, which would follow her wherever she went for the rest of her life or wherever he would take her. At first, Sheikh Ahmed decided to keep Ifat in the house of his first wife, until he could talk to the Indian consulate and convince them to take her away from him, and send her wherever they wanted to send her. He thinks that the Indian government might find a wealthy Indian family to adopt her. Those thoughts and worries are going on in the mind of Sheikh Ahmed on the day he transferred the little daughter of Rehana from his fourth wife's house to the house of wife number 1. His Pakistani chauffeur is driving him in his Mercedes, while the 7-year-old girl Ifat is sitting near him in the back seat. She is playing with her beautiful Barbie dolls. When the old man saw the small female child so engaged in playing with her beautiful Barbie dolls, he gazed at how innocent she was. She seemed unfazed by the mysterious disappearance of her mother. His wicked wife repeatedly told Ifat in his presence that her mother went to jail because she was a professional prostitute and a dirty thief, but the little girl did not understand Arabic. On the contrary, her husband had taken the trouble to tell Ifat through his Pakistani chauffeur that her mother had gone to a place far away, and he told her that she might not come back for a long time. He deliberately left out that she would be stoned to death after sentencing by the Sharia court. He figured that little Ifat would come to know about this tragedy once she was older. The lovely dolls lying in the little girl Ifat's lap and her hands have suddenly reminded Sheikh Ahmed of a story he read about his Prophet Muhammad, may the prayers and peace of Allah be upon him. He remembered that the beloved wife of the Prophet Muhammad, Aisha bint Abu Bakr, used to play with dolls at the time he married her. Even Aisha admitted that the Prophet married her when she was 6 years old, and she still played with dolls and consummated his marriage with her when she was 9 years old. Before we see where Sheikh Ahmed's mind is going to take him with this devilish idea, we should confirm his claim that his prophet married a female child of 6 years old who used to play with dolls at the time of their marriage, and had sex with her when she reached 9 years. Aisha herself narrated that, I used to play with the dolls in the presence of the prophet, and my girlfriends also used to play with me. When Allah's apostle used to enter to us, they used to hide, but the prophet would call them to join and play with me. Sahih al-Bukhari, Volume 8, Book 73, Hadith number 151. This hadith is explained by the renowned Muslim explainer Fateh al-Bari. The playing with dolls and similar images is forbidden, but it was allowed for Aisha at that time, as she was a little girl, not yet reached the age of puberty. Fateh al-Bari, Volume 13, page 143. The Prophet wrote the marriage contract with Aisha while she was 6 years old and consummated his marriage with her while she was 9 years old, and she remained with him for 9 years, till his death. Sahih al-Bukhari, Book 62, Hadith number 89. Aisha, Allah be pleased with her, reported, Allah's apostle, may peace be upon him, married me when I was 6 years old, and I was admitted to his house when I was 9 years old. Sahih Muslim, Book 8, Hadith number 3310. Aisha, Allah be pleased with her, reported that Allah's apostle, may peace be upon him, married her when she was 7 years old, and she was taken to his house as a bride when she was 9, and her dolls were with her. And when he, the Holy Prophet, died she was 18 years old. Sahih Muslim, Book 8, Hadith number 3311. Notice that Sahih Muslim mentioned in a hadith that Aisha was a 7-year-old child, and in the next hadith she was 6-year-old. However, both Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim agreed upon her age was 9 years, when the marriage was consummated, and both mentioned that she used to play with dolls at the time of her marriage. Well, Sheikh Faiz bin Ahmed is right, and his memory is vivid with regards to the age and the childish behavior of the beloved female child bride of his prophet. The Prophet Muhammad married Aisha when she was 6 years old, and he began to have sex with her when she was 9 years old, and while she was still playing with her dolls. The dolls of Ifat and the dolls of Aisha suddenly solved the problem of Sheikh Ahmed. At this junction, a devilish idea leaped into his evil mind, and he decided to carry it out in real life. He asked himself, why should I not follow the example of my gracious and infallible Prophet Muhammad and marry the 7-year-old little girl Ifat? The female child of the Indian maidservant Ifat was 7 years and 11 months old when Sheikh Ahmed decided to marry her. He is an old geezer of the age of 70 years. However, he knows that legally he would not be able to marry her for 2 reasons. First of all, he already has 4 wives, and the Sharia would not allow him to marry a 5th wife unless one of his wives died or got divorced by him. Secondly, Saudi law does not allow him to marry a female foreigner even if she is a Muslim and an Arab girl. Even so, his scheming mind quickly found a way around that particular obstacle. He would divorce one of his 4 wives, and in so doing, his Sharia law would allow him to marry a new wife. Islamic law places the right to divorce entirely in the hands of the man, and does not require him to give any reason for divorcing his wife. He can just say to his spouse, you are divorced, and the divorce will take place. No mazun, Northwest Sharia court, no witnesses, and no divorce certificate are required. Moreover, the man is not like the divorced woman. He needs to wait for 3 months and 10 days before remarrying another woman. He can divorce one wife today and marry another one tomorrow. Al-Hasan, the grandson of the Prophet Muhammad, used to divorce 4 wives in one go and marry another set of 4 women on the same day. He was a marriage addict. He married 200 wives plus his uncountable number of right-hand possession or female slaves. The Prophet Muhammad praised him for his ability to marry such an unbelievable number of women. Regarding the Saudi restriction around foreign brides, Sheikh Ahmed knows that it is just a man-made law. Sharia law never forbids marriage to a foreign woman or an underage female child. He had already married a Christian girl in India, the lovely Christy, who was not a Saudi girl, and consummated his marriage with her. They lived together for 18 months before she cheated on him and divorced him through the Bombay Divorce Court. Regarding which wife the notorious womanizer Sheikh should divorce, 2 immediately popped into his mind. He should either divorce the 4th wife from whom he has just taken the little daughter of his detained maidservant away from her house, or the 1st wife he is taking Ifat to. The 4th wife is ugly, skinny, always complaining, and hard to please. His 3rd wife is obese, ugly, and evil like him. The 2nd wife is an old and decrepit woman. His 1st wife is old and dying of cancer. Twirling the idea in his head, Sheikh Ahmed dismissed the idea of divorcing Mastora for fear of losing her father's business favor. He then understandably decided to divorce Khadija, wife number 1, so that he could upgrade. After coming to that conclusion, Sheikh Ahmed began to justify this decision in his head. He has concluded that Rehana Khan had used him to come to Saudi Arabia for her to be with her Indian lover Aslam Ali Khan. He reasoned that she lied about being raped by 2 Saudi policemen and rescued by a Bedouin family. She might also have just allowed the 2 police officers to have sex with her as a sexual bribe, and then she asked them to release her, and then drop her off at her Indian lover's apartment. If that Indian man Aslam Ali Khan is not her lover, why did she agree to marry him? When he convinced her to marry his chauffeur, Sabir Ibrahim Shah, why did she not mention that she had already gotten married to another man? Why didn't her first husband phone him or come to ask for his wife back? What husband would keep quiet and do nothing if another man came and took away his wife from a beauty salon? He remembered he had given his business card to the woman owner of the salon. Most probably the Filipino woman had given his phone number and address to her first husband Rehana when he came and did not find her. So Sheikh Ahmed concluded that Rehana is either truly a professional prostitute or a big cheater woman who used him to come to Saudi Arabia so that she could be with her Indian boyfriend. Satisfied with his logic, he now felt justified in forsaking the love he felt for her and leaving her to face her anticipated demise through stoning to death. Therefore, this justification left him free to marry her daughter. In the back of his mind, Sheikh Ahmed remembered that he had already been cheated by 2 beautiful Indian women, Christy and Rehana. There would not be a 3rd Indian woman. His mind is now made up of marrying the little girl Ifat, but a few obstacles still stand in the way. How could he marry her, and where should he keep her? He knows the Sharia law would allow him to marry a 7-year-old girl, but his Saudi law forbids marrying female foreigners. Even if he married her secretly, where would he keep her? At first, the old geezer thought of marrying Ifat and keeping her in another Muslim country. But which country should he choose? Several Muslim countries popped up immediately in his mind: Somalia, Sudan, Eritrea, Djibouti, Libya, Yemen, Indonesia, Malaysia, Bangladesh, Iraq, Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Burkina Faso. In fact, there are 55 Muslim countries, but these are the only ones that popped into his mind. All of these lands are Muslim countries and allow child marriages. He decided to print the name of each country on a piece of paper and fold it up, and then ask his to-be child bride Ifat to pick a piece of paper and whatever she picked from the lot would be her country. However, on second thought, he dismissed that idea. If he sent his soon-to-be child bride out of the country, he is afraid that when she grows up, she might find another boyfriend and run away with him. He recollected the mistake he had made by marrying the infidel girl Christy, only for her to cheat on him with her uncircumcised boyfriend in his house and fornicating day and night with her Indian lover while they were using his money and house. She then abruptly dumped him like trash because of her mad love for her infidel dog, her lover Bobby. But before the sheik could conclude, the car reached the house of wife number 1. Chapter 3. Preparing for marrying the child bride. The Saudi oldman Sheikh Ahmed intends to marry the underage child of his detained Indian maidservant and practice thighing on her until she reaches the age of 9. At the time, the little girl Ifat was almost 8. She is 7 and 11 months old. She does not even know what sex is. When she saw her mother stripped naked by the 2 policemen in the desert, she thought they were killing her. When the Saudi policeman took her out of the police car, showed her his male part organ, and tried to force her to hold it in her hand, she did not have an inkling about what he was trying to do to her. What she did know is that it is wrong to show your private parts in public, and she resisted his attempts to force her to use her hand to masturbate. As it turned out, the sacrifice of a mother who offered herself up to the 2 policemen for raping her simultaneously prevented her little daughter Ifat from being raped. Alas, now with her mother unjustly incarcerated and awaiting her execution, Ifat lost her one and only female guardian, with no one to protect her from life's evil. Upon reaching the house of his first wife Khadija, Sheikh Ahmed changed his mind. He told his wife he was going to send the daughter of his Indian maidservant to her family in India, after a few days. His first wife agreed to keep Ifat in her house. He did not tell his wife that he was planning to divorce her and marry the little girl in her place. Sheikh Ahmed's first wife is bedridden, suffering from the last stages of cancer. She could die at any moment, but her selfish husband could not wait for her to die. He had remarried her after divorcing her to marry his Indian wife, Christy. After his Christian wife divorced him, kicked him out of his house in Bombay, brought her Christian boyfriend, and married him, Sheikh Ahmed once again remarried his first wife, Khadija, just to show off that he is a kind husband. But now circumstances are different, and for all wants and purposes, he is willing to send Khadija to the grave as a divorcee. Death for Muslim women generally means going to hell. The Prophet Muhammad said that the majority of Muslim women would end up in hellfire, and they will burn forever. The Muslim man, in abject contrast, is promised 72 beautiful and eternal virgins in paradise, but the Muslim woman can look forward to burning in hell for all eternity with Iblis the devil, and his demons and human followers. Sheikh Ahmed has a never-ending evil mentality, and worked out a new plan to marry his child bride, Aisha. I meant to say Ifat, following the unrighteousness of his alleged prophet of Allah. He figured that the safest country for his new marriage to a foreign female was to send her to Eritrea, marry her, and keep her there permanently. He has learned from some Eritreans in Saudi Arabia that Eritrea is well known for female child marriages. Most Eritreans traditionally give their female children in marriage as soon as they have reached 7, 8, or 9 years of age. Sheikh Ahmed knows that Islam forbids adoption, so he could not try to adopt Ifat, and then pretend she is his daughter while she would be his wife undercover. He could do that by making her get married to his castrated pimp. But he then anticipated that one day, someone from the media, or the Indian government might ask him the whereabouts of the daughter of his condemned Indian maidservant. Therefore, he planned to send Ifat to Eritrea via India. If he is asked about the female child of his imprisoned Indian maidservant, he could say that he had sent her to her relatives in Bombay. He knows no one is going to search for a small girl in a hut without an address in the largest slum in Asia, in the cosmopolitan city of Bombay, which has 19 million people. The old Saudi fears taking Ifat himself because he expected his bitterest enemy and former Indian chauffeur, Muhammad Khan, might find out about his arrival in Bombay and send some dangerous underworld mafia of the Bombay Gondas to kill him. He knows that an evil Indian man has spies everywhere, including the international airport. To avoid fatal retribution, he decided it would be safer to send his Pakistani chauffeur to travel with little Indian girl Ifat. However, this well-thought plan did not work out too well, as Sabir's application for a visa at the Indian consulate in Jeddah was promptly rejected because he is a Pakistani man. To get around that particular obstacle, Sheikh Ahmed booked the trip of his soon-to-be child bride and his Pakistani chauffeur on a Saudi flight to Eritrea through India and the Philippines. The routes that will be taken by the Saudi plane will be Bombay, Manila, and Asmara. In the end, the old man believes his smart plan shall exclude him from any culpability and absolve him of any blame if anyone in the future starts asking questions. He began rehearsing his story about how he sent her to her family in Bombay through his Pakistani chauffeur. And if he is asked where his Pakistani chauffeur is, he would simply say that his chauffeur decided to stay in India and make his way to Pakistan. Sheikh Ahmed already planned to keep Ifat in Asmara and keep his castrated Pakistani chauffeur as her guardian angel. He has no intention of allowing Ifat a chance of falling in love with another young man and running away with him. He is going to keep the young damsel in distress in her own Barbie doll castle. Only Barbie's handsome boyfriend Ken will not be there to steal her from him, and she would be well guarded by Sabir Ibrahim Shah, his faithful Pakistani pimp. To make his story more plausible, Sheikh Ahmed convinced his Pakistani chauffeur to pretend to be Ifat's mother's brother. When they both applied for visas to Eritrea, Sabir Shah claimed that Ifat Khan was the daughter of his sister Rehana Khan, who was married to a Muslim man from Pakistan by the name of Khan. But before they approached the Eritrean consulate in Jeddah, Sheikh Ahmed told Ifat another story. He told her that he was going to send her with Sabir to her mother in India. To that end, she is supposed to say that Sabir Ibrahim Shah is her mother's brother. The plan of the evil old man worked out perfectly, and his child bride began her trip to Eritrea. He flew to Asmara the very same day Ifat and Sabir started their long trip to Eritrea via India and the Philippines. On a direct flight, he reached his final destination before them, and he booked 2 rooms in a 5-star hotel, one for Ifat and her uncle and one for himself. He suspected that if he touched the little female child or molested her in the hotel, she might scream out and get him into big trouble with the police of Asmara, especially since she is not his wife yet. And so, he decided to wait until he could conduct the marriage ceremony and then move her to a safe place in the city. He is planning to buy a house in Asmara and keep his child bride as his new wife and his everlasting female sex slave. Accordingly, Sheikh Faiz bin Ahmed bought a huge house in Asmara and transferred his to-be female child bride Ifat Khan and her fake uncle Sabir Ibrahim Shah to the home. Then he found an Eritrean Mazun and asked him to bring 2 male witnesses to his house to conduct the marriage ceremony with his young Indian fiancé. Islamic law would not require Ifat to sign her marriage contract. According to the Sharia, a woman is utterly incompetent to enter into a marriage contract either herself or for another, even though her guardian should authorize her to do so. A father can contract the marriage of his virgin daughter without asking her consent whatever her age, citing Varma 1988, page 24. Since Ifat Khan is a virgin, her consent is not required. When her mother was contracted in marriage to Sabir, the Islamic law required her consent because she was not a virgin. In some Muslim countries, a Muslim widow or divorcee would not be forced into another marriage without her consent. When the Eritrean Mazun arrived, with his 2 witnesses, Sheikh Ahmed and Sabir signed the marriage contract. As her uncle, Sabir is considered the guardian of Ifat Khan. The alleged messenger of God Muhammad said no marriage without a guardian. The Prophet said further that if a woman gets married without her guardian's consent, she is a prostitute. Somehow, Muhammad exempted himself from this law when he married Zainab bint Jahash and Safiya bint Huyai. In the case of Zainab, He claimed that Allah had married her to him, and Safiya had no one left to be her guardian because Muhammad had already killed her father, husband, brother, and entire Jewish tribe. Chapter 4. The Place of Women in Islam. The most dangerous place for women in the world is the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The first couple of months Rayhana Khan and her daughter Ifat Khan spent in Jeddah showed us just how dangerous it is for a woman to be without protection in a jungle full of sexual deviance. Recently, a 15-year-old Moroccan girl, who went with her parents on the holy pilgrimage, was brutally raped by 3 Saudi men. After raping her on the terrace of a hotel, they threw her body alive from the 15th floor. Her body hit the concrete asphalt street and died a horrible and cruel death on the spot. She died for her want of getting a better view of the holy city of Mecca from the terrace on the top floor. Her Moroccan parents had no idea of the violent mentality of Saudi men, and so they allowed their daughter to go alone. After all, it was just within the hotel. They mistakenly thought that they were still in Morocco. Sadly, the 15-year-old Moroccan girl like Rayhana was a victim of ignorance. Nothing in their lives had prepared them for the abusive nature of the Saudi Arabian men. In that society, if a woman put one leg outside her door with her other leg still inside the doorway, she would be raped. For that reason, Saudis do not like to live in a building that has many apartments in it. In the past, the Saudi government built many buildings with unbelievably beautiful and spacious apartments. The government extended a generous invitation and asked the Bedouins to leave their desert villages and tents and come and live comfortably in the city by occupying these luxurious apartments without paying a single rial. The Bedouins refused simply because they feared their neighbors might come in their absence and rape their daughters, sisters, and wives. It is also common for women to be raped in elevators. Saudi men, like many other Muslim men all over the world, have sexually corrupt minds because of the misogynistic teachings of their prophet Muhammad. The greatest Muslim intellectual scholar, philosopher, and theologian, Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, in his well-renowned book, The Revival of the Religious Sciences, said, "Be careful of women, for their guile is immense and their mischief is noxious, they are immoral and mean." It is a fact that all the trials, misfortunes, and woes that befall men come from women. Therefore, following such misogynistic teaching, the Muslim man would not trust even his father and brother with his wife. This is because the Prophet Muhammad said that the in-laws are in imminent danger from their wife, and she is a death sentence for them. Muhammad himself could not control his lust when he saw his daughter-in-law, Zainab bint Jahash, in her tent while she was half-nude. She was the wife of Muhammad's adopted son, Zayd ibn Muhammad, and in the eyes of the Arabs, as good as his daughter-in-law. The Prophet Muhammad went to her house when her husband was away, saw her in a state of semi-nudeness, and was sexually aroused. According to the Sirah, the Prophet's biography, Allah sent a wind, which lifted up the curtain of the tent, and Muhammad saw Zainab lying on her bed half-naked. Zainab is described by the books of biography as white, beautiful, and having a sensual body. To take her from her husband and marry Muhammad, the alleged prophet had fabricated verses in the Quran and claimed that Allah had given her to him in marriage. See Surah Al-Ahzab 33, verses 36 to 40. According to the biography, she was the only wife of the prophet who had been married without a guardian. Her mazun was Allah, and the witness for the marriage was the angel Gabriel. Simply put, no Muslim man should trust his wife. This stems from yet another Islamic tradition. The Islamic tradition said, "Four things can never be trusted: the money, sultan, time, and woman, even if you have lived with her for a very long time," quoted in Al-Kimni, Rab al-Zaman, The Lord of This Time, Women in Religious Heritage and Legends, 1996, page 220. To understand the misogynistic mind of the Muslim man and the low position that Islam has placed on women, we need to refer again to the above-quoted book. The Egyptian Muslim thinker, Sayyid al-Kimni, held the Islamic heritage responsible for degrading Muslim women. Al-Kimni, Rab al-Zaman, The Lord of This Time, 1996, page 219. According to him, the Islamic religious heritage made the Muslim woman believe she had been created from a bent rib, deficient in religion and intellect. Her testimony equals half of a man's testimony. Her inheritance is half of a man's share. She cannot divorce her spouse while her husband can divorce her any time for a reason or without reason. Al-Kimni, page 220. The Muslim woman believes herself to be a Satan, and therefore she cannot control her sexual desires. Al-Kimni, page 221. According to the Islamic heritage, woman succumbs to her lust and not intellect. She has a natural tendency to cheat on her husband because she is one of the four that could not be trusted: money, sultan, time, and woman. Al-Kimni, page 220. Women had been created for the comfort and sexual enjoyment of their husbands. In that way, the religious heritage made the Muslim woman believe herself to be a mere pussy or vagina, and hence she is called al-Hurma, taboo, and haram, forbidden. Al-Kimni, page 222. Therefore, if she kept her faith and her vagina and gave enjoyment to her master, she would enter heaven. Al-Kimni, page 220. A woman's faith could not be perfected except by her complete obedience and submission to her husband, and such obedience would secure her a place in heaven as a prostitute among the many harems of the men. Al-Kimni, page 221. This gloomy picture that Al-Kimni depicted of the Muslim woman irritated many Muslim female professors and ulama, or scholars of Al-Azhar Al-Sharif University, who believe that Islam has honored the woman and put her in the best place. Consequently, Al-Kimni had been condemned as a kafir or a heretic by the female professors of Al-Azhar Al-Sharif University because he exposed in his book, The Fascists and the Nation, the low status in which Islam put the woman, that she is inferior to men in every respect and made for his sexual pleasure. The main reason for their protest is that Al-Kimni made a mistake by demanding rights for women, which Islam gave to men only. Al-Kimni, page 177. Chapter 5. Practicing thighing on the underage bride. When the little female child Ifat Khan contracted in marriage to the 70-year-old Saudi man, she was over 7 years old, almost 8 years less a month. She has no idea what marriage is. She has not even been informed that she is to become the wife of Sheikh Ahmed. The Eritrean imam wrote the marriage contract, issued the certificate, received his money fees, and then left, followed by the 2 male witnesses. As soon as the Eritrean imam and the witnesses left, the evil old man decided to imitate the example of his infallible and ungracious prophet Muhammad. He took his 7-year-old female child bride to his bedroom and asked his Pakistani pimp to translate his first words to her. Through his interpreter, he told Ifat that she had become his wife. The underage bride could not understand what he meant by his wife. Then he told her that he was not going to harm her. He also told her that he was going to give her beautiful gifts if she agreed to remove her clothes and show him her underwear. Ifat refused. He added that he would give her beautiful Barbie dolls and golden ornaments. Therefore he opened a cupboard and showed her some lovely dolls, golden necklaces, earrings, bangles, watches, dresses, and shoes. The child bride said she likes to have those beautiful dolls, ornaments, clothes, and shoes. She took them from his hands. While she is playing with the dolls and putting on her ornaments, the evil old man begins to touch her body and lustfully feels her up. Then he began to remove her dress. Ifat does not resist. She is scared that if she does not allow him to remove her clothes, he will take away the beautiful dolls and ornaments that he has given her. When he stripped her of her outer dress and left her in her underwear, the evil old man ordered his despicable pimp to go out and lock the bedroom from the outside. The old geezer has prepared himself. He has various kinds of chocolates, candies, and cookies. He also purchased lovely dolls, ornaments, dresses, and shoes. He bought some games too. He filled the cupboard with every kind of attractive gift tempting to a small female child as Ifat. Then he began to coerce her with more tempting gifts. After she allowed him to remove her dress, he asked her to sit on his lap. When she refused to obey him, he showed her more dolls and chocolates. When she wanted to take them from his hands, he held them back. He used his arms to motion for her to come to sit on his lap, or he would not give them to her. The little girl Ifrit obeyed him, and sat on his lap. When he began to feel her body, kiss her, and touch her secret private parts, she got scared and tried to run away from him. Of course, he restrained her and promised to give her more gifts. After that, he opened his garment and showed her his phallus. Ifrit refused to look at his private parts, closed her eyes, and began to cry. He let go of her, and he allowed her to get up from his lap. He stood up, went to the child-sized cupboard, and opened all the drawers and doors. Then he showed her many more dolls, ornaments, candies, and cookies. He waved his hand and invited her to come and select whatever she would like. Tempted by the beautiful gifts, Ifrit went to the cupboard and began to grab whatever she liked. While she was bending over selecting all the fascinating and colorful gifts she had never seen before and would like to have, he came up from behind and began to practice the thigh-ing on her. The little Indian girl Ifrit could not understand what he was doing to her, so she just continued to explore the cupboard. That day the 7-year-old girl saw things she should not have seen at her age, and she was sexually abused the way no female child should ever be. Only a dirty Arab pedophile would contemplate a scheme that culminates in the ruination of an underage girl's childhood. Little by little, the evil old man blackmailed Ifrit until he had accomplished his first thigh-ing of the innocent female child, and ejaculated all over her backside, and his semen ran down her thighs. Then he allowed her to collect her collection, go to the washroom, wash her body, and then play with her dolls. Sheikh Ahmed felt no guilt. His conscience is cleared because he knows quite well that his Prophet Muhammad used to do the same thing to his 6-year-old female child bride, Aisha bint Abu Bakr. The reader might wonder why I felt the need to narrate the details of what the Saudi did to Rayhana's 7-year-old daughter. I wanted the reader to know and feel the pain that any underage girl who gets raped by a Muslim man would experience, while the evil pedophile act is condoned, even encouraged by the example of the Prophet Muhammad vide the Quran in Surat Al-Talaq 65 verse 4. To this end, I showed how the old Saudi accomplished this abominable and abhorrent deed with a female child who had no carnal knowledge and did not react, as there was no pain in the thigh-ing. The girl Ifrit Khan is still a child and not developed enough, neither physiologically nor psychologically for sex with an adult, much less one who is not inclined to be gentle. For her, it is simply a horrifying nightmare and unbearable torture. When the evil old man began to practice real sex and rape her, she felt like someone is inserting a knife in her private parts, a deep wound tearing her up inside while she screamed. Thigh-ing was painless, and her young intuition already told her something was amiss. But a female child's resolve will crumble when coerced day after day, occasion after occasion. He tried to get her to use her hand to masturbate his phallus, failing to prevent harsher methods. He made her starve for many hours, and he refused to give her water. He locked her up in a small room, and he denied her basic human needs. For more than 24 hours, he imprisoned her in a room, with no lights or windows. She is not allowed to use a washroom, and has to use the same room as a toilet. Up against what must be for a small female child insurmountable odds and pressure, she agreed to do anything he willed. When she allowed him to use her hand to masturbate with him, he gave her food, cold drinks, and some pretty gifts. Every evil deviation that came into his dirty mind, he used it to satisfy his lust. What he did to her for 7 months did not only harm her physically, but it destroyed the female child within. He replaced the innocence of a female child with ugliness and shame that she would have to carry with her for the rest of her life. Chapter 6. On being a female child bride in Islam. Sex with the notorious Arab womanizer who is also a pedophile old man is an exceedingly painful daily experience for the underage girl Ifrit Khan. She fought and struggled, but with his uncaring and brutal methods, he forced himself on her. Sheikh Ahmed, like many evil men, enjoys inflicting pain on his female victims during sex. Some Muslims believe that the jihad of the woman should be on the bed of her husband. The good Muslim wife is the one who is supposed to feel the pain during sexual intercourse, and the noise and sound of distress allow her husband to validate his manhood and strong sexual ability. The more she feels the pain in sex and she screams, wails, and bewails, the better jihad she performs and gets rewarded by Allah. That is why Muslims in France pay huge sums of hard foreign currency to French doctors to have their wives made virgins again. A Muslim man in France is prepared to pay a French doctor $5,000 to make his wife a virgin, just like the time he married her. He enjoys penetrating her cunt and breaking her hymen over and over again. The act of penetrating a woman's hymen causes bleeding and pain, for some more than others, especially the noticeably young wives. The evil and perverted is the mind of a husband who enjoys causing pain to his wife and seeing the blood running out of her vagina. Muslim men get these twisted ideas directly from the teachings of Islam about the virgins of paradise. The Quran and Hadiths simply state that the virgins of paradise remain virgins after intercourse. The Prophet was asked, "Do we have sex in paradise?" He answered, "Yes, by he who holds my soul in his hand, and it will be done daman, that is the intercourse done with such shove and disturbance. And when it is finished, she will return pure and virgin again," cited in Hack and Newton 1996, page 17. According to this hadith, either Allah would stitch the virgin's vagina immediately after she has lost her virginity by insertion of the male's penis, or he would recreate a new him and insert it in her pussy. In fact, in Islam, the woman is nothing but a mere pussy or a vagina. The Prophet Muhammad said, "The woman is a whore. When she goes outside the house, the devil takes charge of her." Tirmizi, Volume 2, page 65. According to this hadith, whenever the woman goes out of her house, she will be possessed by demons. So she is dangerous to society, and hence she should be imprisoned inside her house. There is no definition so widely used and accepted among Muslims for defining the woman than saying, "The woman is a whore." The term awara is defined in the Encyclopedia of Islam as the external genitals, especially of the female, cited in Hack and Newton 1996, page 5. So, to put it bluntly, a woman, from head to toe, is a big pussy. Sex occupied the mind of the Prophet Muhammad throughout the 25 years of preaching his new religious cult. As if 72 virgins are not enough, every Muslim man is entitled to 100 young boys that the Quran describes as diamond sparkling boys. There will circulate boys for them as if they are beautiful pearls well protected. Quran Surah Al-Ta 52, verse 24. The Quran describes the beautiful young boys as not getting a headache or bleeding. Some Muslim scholars hide the fact that the Quran has promised these 100 beautiful boys for sex and sodomy. They argue that the purpose of the boys in paradise is to serve the faithful men. One may ask, if the beautiful boys are to serve the faithful Muslims only, why then does the Quran say that they would neither bleed nor have headaches? The Quran meant the beautiful young boys would not bleed during sex, because there is no hymen to tear or break when the male penis is penetrating during sex with those pretty 100 boys. Anyhow, Sheikh Ahmed did not live for 7 months in Eritrea. He kept his Pakistani Kolam as a guard, to keep his child bride imprisoned in his Asmara house. Kolam means a male slave and Kadamaya means a female slave. No wonder the maidservant is called Kadamaya. African and Asian Muslims show high respect for their Arab masters or employers and look at them as superior to them, as if those Arabs are Brahmas, and they are untouchable outcasts in Hindu society. The Muslim Arabs have been revered and exalted by non-Arab Muslims because the Prophet of Islam is an Arab. This stupidity led some black Africans like Sudanese, Somalians, and Mauritanians to claim that they were Arabs too. The Pakistani chauffeur is such a faithful and obedient slave to his Arab master. He is prepared to do anything to please him. Even if he asks him to bring his wife and sister for sexual entertainment to Sheikh Ahmed, the despicable Pakistani pimp will bring them to his Arab master. The old Saudi spends a few days every month with his imprisoned child bride, and then returns to his country. He hired 4 Eritrean Khadamiat, maidservants for serving his female child bride Ifat, 1 woman for cooking, 1 for cleaning the house, 1 for washing the laundry, and 1 for massaging and applying dilka and kamra on her body. The old geezer also kept a guard at the gate of his big mansion. This Eritrean guard, who looks like one of the terrorists of Boko Haram, has a licensed and fully loaded rifle. Whatever food his female child bride desires, and whatever clothes and dolls she wants to have been provided. She has become decked in gold and diamonds from head to toe. He treats her the same way he used to treat his former Indian bride, Christy. It is not hard to imagine the little bride Ifat feeling like a bird kept in a gilded cage. Since she had stepped foot inside the mansion, she had not been allowed to go outside the compound of the prison. It is a mansion but not a home, a palace of terror instead of a safe and loving environment. Many times, she begged Sabir to allow her to go outside and play in the grass with her dolls, but he refused. She cried and begged the lustful pedophile to take her to where her mother was, but he would sharply deny her request. He simply countered her pleas by telling her the Saudi police had taken her mother to a place extremely far away because she had done something awfully bad. He refused to tell her what her mother had done, or when she was going to come back and get her. He does not like to talk about her mother, as much as Qais used to love his lovely Indian Layla. From the day she got arrested, he started to hate even hearing her real name, Rehana. For several months, the evil Saudi thied and molested his Indian female child bride. When she reached the age of 9, he began to prepare her for vaginal sex. He intends to teach her about sex, or at least the part she has to play before he would start raping her. He brought porn movies and forced her to watch them with him. She did not like them, but she agreed after going through another round of his starvation and imprisonment techniques. He made her understand what he wanted to do with her, by the example of the sex scenes in pornographic movies. When he tried to rape her, she resisted and fought him off. He discovered that she had grown up, and was much stronger than before. So, to get her into obedience and compliance, he simply broke her resistance by withholding all food and water. Crying and begging have got her nowhere. He simply repeated his old line that if she did not do exactly what he wanted, he would not give her any food or water. But the little girl Ifat refused to yield to his requests, and told him she wanted to die. For 2 days, the small female child went without food and water. She thought that she would starve to death and go to heaven to be with her father and mother. When her father committed suicide, she was told by her mother and grandmother that her father died, and went to heaven, and is living in a better place. She now believes that the same police officers who had beaten her mother and done all those terrible things to her had come back, taken her away, and this time killed her for Rayal. In her mind, it is simply better to die and go be with her parents, than continue living in the house of horrors with a nasty old man that made her do all those things she did not like to do. The vicious old geezer became extremely furious, and continually struck her face, and flogged her with a big whip. When he was done with his revenge beatings, he would lock her up in the darkroom again. The small girl Ifat, or any other, is not capable of outmaneuvering the mind of a professional abuser. He simply resumed his methods, and he eventually got exactly what he wanted. On the 3rd day, Ifat loses her strength, and is no longer able to move around. While she is lying half-conscious, the old man came in and removed her dress and underwear, and began to rape her. She could not move a limb to stave him off. Sadly, her ability to feel pain is undiminished. The old man tried but could not penetrate her private parts, because she was just too underage. Not giving up, he used his finger to widen her vagina. His finger felt like a sharp metal rod forcing itself inside her. She wanted to cry, but her dried-up mouth and weak body could not scream out in pain. Only a steady flow of tears poured out of her eyes. Using the middle fingers to widen the private parts of underage girls or female child wives is quite common in Arab countries. No matter how many times the old monster had tried repeatedly to penetrate the private parts of his underage child bride, he could not succeed. Those repeated attempts had given the small girl Ifrit continuing day and night nightmares and unbearable tortures and copious bleeding in her private parts. The wicked Arabman had even tried anal sex with his victim, but he could not succeed in that too. The old geezer has become very advanced in his years and has lost much of his vigor, but is determined to penetrate her by all means. He knows his fingers alone would not widen her vaginal canal, but he has brought many sex toys. He changed his fingering method and began to use a plastic penis. His new method worked, and he can insert half of the plastic penis inside the small girl's vagina. The blood ran out of his victim's vagina and turned everything around it red. She felt as if he was using a sharp knife and sewing her into two halves. The pain is unbearable. She lost consciousness. He did not bother to find out whether she had lost consciousness or had died. His lust has blinded him, and he decides to penetrate her even if she is already a corpse. He mounted her seemingly lifeless body and began to penetrate her. Finally, the wicked scum of a man by hook or by crook has been able to insert half of his male organ into his victim's bleeding vagina. Then he brutally raped her inside the copiously bleeding private parts until he has ejaculated, and his white semen mingled with her red blood. After that, he called his despicable Pakistani pimp and asked him to help him take his bride to the hospital. It is a quite common phenomenon in countries like Eritrea, Sudan, and Somalia for brides to be taken to the hospital on their first wedding night because of excessive bleeding. Hospitals consider such cases normal because of the widespread custom of female genital mutilation in the African Muslim lands. If a new bride is wheeled into a hospital with an injury due to sexual intercourse with her husband, it is not considered rape nor is it considered a serious case. In Ifrit's case, she is taken to the intensive care unit because she is dehydrated and starved. She is fed through an IV in her veins. She remained in a coma for 3 days before she came back to life. The hospital did not consider her case criminal in nature and treated her until she recovered. After 5 days, Ifrit is transferred back to her former prison. As soon as the hospital discharged Ifrit Khan, and she is brought back to the mansion of horror, the old man began to rape her again. This time, she felt the pain more than before. She felt more pain because she is fully conscious and the wounds in her private parts are still not fully healed. She screamed at the top of her voice and resisted, but she could not be able to stop him because her body was still weak. She felt terrible pain when his male organ began to press hard on the surface of her wounded tiny vagina. This time, it felt like salt poured on an open wound. She bit his shoulder and scratched his face with her nails. She hit his back with her fists and kicked his legs. Nothing she did could get him off her body or prevent him from forcing his penis into her undeveloped vagina. As he began to penetrate her, she fainted. As before, the old monster did not bother to find out why she stopped resisting and screaming. He just continued to press on until he had fully inserted his penis inside her vagina. This time, he did more damage and after he ejaculated, blood pooled around her body. For the second time, he called his Pakistani pimp and asked him to treat the child bride. This time, he decided not to take her to the hospital. He is afraid that she might be hospitalized again for a few days. He would not tolerate waiting until she got discharged. He wants to enjoy raping her no matter what her health condition. He just told his pimp to clean up the blood around her vagina and to apply Dettol to stop the bleeding. The despicable Pakistani slave followed the orders of his Arab master and began cleaning her up and applying the Dettol. After that, he used chilly water to revive the Indian child bride Ifat Khan.